Hey everybody, how's it going? So today what I'd like to do is I'd like to compare two devices, the Samsung Galaxy S9 Plus to my Moto G7. So a lot of people ask me what phone I use, why, will I review it. I don't like doing this stuff for a few reasons. The first is that the things that I notice when I use a device, what I care about, what matters to me is often not what matters to most ordinary people. And I just also don't have the time and the inclination to do all of the fancy camera angles and putting all the crap on the screen and doing the geek bench or whatever the hell else people do when they review products nowadays, or that show how fast the processor is. What I care about when I use a phone is really very different from what a lot of other people usually tend to care about. So what really took me off guard when I tried this was how bad it was in contrast to my $140 Moto G, which is currently the phone that I use. So the first thing that I want to do here is go over the screen and the ergonomics of it, because that's the first thing that made me want to curse this phone out when I tried it. So the first thing I'm going to do here is just load up something that will allow me to scroll a little bit. I got the blue light filter cranked a little bit more on the Samsung than the Moto, which is why the screen looks different. First thing that you notice immediately is that Samsung does this bullshit where the screen wraps alongside the edge. So rather than the screen coming to an end over here and then the phone boxing itself off like a square, it rounds off to the edge, because there's this modern obsession with making the bezel smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, because you can define a phone's worth by the size of its bezel. The screen must go to the full edge of the phone, and if it doesn't, by God, it must be a piece of crap. Now, what I don't like about this is that since the touchscreen in LCD is going past the edge over here, if I hold the phone, I have to hold it like this, or get some sort of special case, or hold it like this to avoid touching it where it's not going to work properly. So see, I can scroll if I hold it like this. But let's say I hold it like this, see that? My middle finger is actually touching this over here, and it caused it to zoom and to think I have two fingers touching it. Or if I do this, let's say my fat palm over here, for the people in the comments that have fat palms, see what it's doing? You see how I can't really scroll well anymore? That annoying stuff like that happens to me all the time with this, because right now it is 20 degrees outside in New York City. So when I grab my phone to use it outside, it's not like when I'm using it inside, where I have the luxury of let me grab it and let me embrace it with my finger right over here kind of crap. It's like I'm trying to not get frostbite. So I'm looking at my phone. I'm probably freezing. I'm doing this. And when this happens, it drives me crazy. Whereas with this phone, which again costs considerably less money, I can hold it. Even if I were to hold it like that and grab and squeeze, I can easily scroll. I can easily click on things. You can easily click on any of these things. I'm not accidentally selecting anything, because the screen does not go all the way to the edge, because they did not do that. So this is something that I don't think Samsung recognizes, but people have palms. And when they hold the phone, they also have fingers on the other side. And if you make the side of the screen sensitive to touch, then that's going to touch it, and that's going to fuck with you using the phone. So this obsession with getting rid of bezels entirely has evolved to the insanity of having the screen actually go off into the edge of the phone, which to me is the stupidest fucking thing I could ever imagine. Now, the only other reason I can imagine doing this, other than the desire for the small bezels, is to eliminate the aftermarket screen market. So the aftermarket screen market would allow people to repair their devices affordably. This is pure speculation from my part, but I've noticed that Samsung and companies like Samsung often tend to copy Apple on everything that they do. And one of those things is, fuck allowing poor people to fix their devices. And one of the ways you do that is by having the device have a curved screen. So if you're Samsung or LG, you can produce curved screens just fine. If you're Chime or AU Optronics, maybe you can. If you're some random company that that pumps out 15,000 screens or 30,000 screens for the aftermarket repair market, because remember, when these phones come out, these screens can be $300, $400. That's crazy. If you're one of those places that produces an aftermarket screen where you get maybe 80 or 70% the quality of the original, but the screen's $50, you're not going to be able to produce a screen that is that's curved in that way. That's something that you need to be a bit more advanced to be able to do. And That's not something that a lot of the third-party screen manufacturers will be able to do. They're just not as sophisticated as Samsung or LG yet. They can't do that. That's also why you'll see knockoff screens for cell phones, but you don't see a lot of knockoff screens for laptops, because making a 15 or 17 or 17.3 inch screen, if you're one of those smaller factories, is a difficult thing to do. Now, this is another thing that I wanted to go over with this device before you get into everything else, is its ability to be used outside when it is cold. Now, lithium-ion batteries do not perform as well when it is cold outside. That I understand. I also understand the fact that while you can discharge a lithium-ion battery when it's kind of cold, charging it while it is below freezing is an absolute no-no. And I am not trying to charge these phones, either of them or any lithium-ion battery, when it's freezing. However, I do have the phone on a mount on my bike. Sometimes I'm going 20 miles an hour, sometimes 10, sometimes 30 or 40. And what I've noticed is that this phone, this Moto G that costs $140, never turns off. It doesn't matter if I'm riding through 20 degrees, 35 miles an hour, wind chill for half an hour. It's fine and everything functions. This Samsung over here, if it gets to be 36 degrees, that's not even below freezing yet, and I'm riding and there's some wind chill, if that 36 degrees hitting the phone, it will reboot repeatedly and turn off because it's not able to deal with it. Even if I'm just idling, even if I'm not playing a podcast or listening to a YouTube video, it's just sitting there with its screen on and nothing else, that will kill it. That's weird. Now again, I completely understand the fact that lithium-ion batteries are going to degrade in their performance when it is cold outside. That being said, the $600 phone becomes unusable on a bike when it was 36 degrees. It shut off several times over the past few days, even when it was 36 degrees at night. This thing continues to work like a champ for 45 minutes at a time when it is 20 degrees outside. So that was a considerable disappointment for me, was the fact that this phone is completely incompatible with my use case, because when it is cold outside, I can't use this thing. It doesn't work. The next thing to go over here, and the battery life on it is decent. It's not like I get bad battery life with it. It's just that when I go outside in the cold, it's not like the battery life sinks. It just dead. Next thing to go over here is the radio on the device. So one of the things that I noticed is that when it comes to Wi-Fi, this device gives out considerably before this one does. So I'm going to connect to my store Wi-Fi here. Let's just get both of the phones over here. So we're going to connect to the store Wi-Fi, and I will show you this with a speed test. So we're going to open up openspeedtest.com over here, and I will try to do an open speed test with each of these devices, and you can see what we get with each of them. So yeah, I'm getting messages on this one, so I'm just going to move that out the way. Okay, so this just got 62 millisecond ping. And let's see if it loads my speed test. The problem that I have with this one is not simply limited to the radio when it comes to Wi-Fi, but also Bluetooth. So even if I use Bluetooth and I don't use a higher end codec like aptX HD, I will still get considerably less range with the Samsung than I do with the Moto. So there are times where I'm holding it in my hand and it works, and then I go to put the phone in my pocket, and the Bluetooth starts jittering or jattering, and I'll take it out and put it back in my pocket again, and then it'll work. So as you can see here, this is crawling. It got a download of 0.04 megabit per second. I'm not even going to continue to the upload test because that, at this point, is a joke. Now, I am far away from my router. I want to be clear here. I am far away from my wireless access point. I'm in my office, and the wireless access point is in the front. This is not an ideal Wi-Fi setup, but I'm just doing this so that I can demonstrate to you how in a non-ideal setup, this $140 device is absolutely spanking this $600+ device when it came out. I think it's worth like $300 now in the used market. Okay, so we got open speed test here on this little Moto. I'm going to hit the play button, and let's see where it goes. See if we get anything better. All right, we got a 13 millisecond ping time and 0.22 megabit per second, which is, here we go. It's climbing now a little bit up to 1. Again, this is not exactly the best speed here, but it is considerably better than the Samsung. Now, again, this is not an ideal condition to keep in mind here. I am far away from my wireless access point in this office, and I should have another wireless access point here. The point that I'm demonstrating to you is that the Wi-Fi on my $140 phone is beating the Wi-Fi on a phone that, when it came out, retailed for over $600. This is the same as with my experience with how it deals with me just wanting to scroll is worse on the $600 one. Same as my experience when I go to use it outside is worse on the $600 one. So there's this thing that a lot of people do where they judge the entirety of a device, often based on the advertising or the price and things like that, where if a device is well engineered, really, like at $140, you can get something that in many ways is better. Now, to be clear, this camera on the Motorola is dog shit. I don't use this as a camera. If I'm doing videos while I'm out for YouTube, I have a DJI action camera on my helmet that I use as my dash cam in case someone hits me or I have proof that, I wasn't in the wrong. I use that. I use that camera for that purpose. So because I have a secondary camera, I can live with the fact that the camera in my phone is a piece of shit. The camera in this phone, though, is a piece of shit. The video it takes is horrible. The pictures that it takes are horrible. The camera in this phone is good. And the quality of the screen for, let's say, viewing a movie or viewing a television show is considerably better on this phone than it is on the Moto, even if the ergonomics of it are not that great. That's clearly better on here, and frankly, I would expect it for the fact that it's 4 times the price. But all these little things, like the little things that make up the feel of using a device, how easy is it to scroll and not touch the wrong thing? How often does it crash when I am under difficult conditions, like I'm riding a bike at 25 miles an hour and it's 20 degrees outside, and I'm using Google Maps to find out where I'm going. This phone allows me to know where I'm going and keep giving me directions. This one crashes every 2 minutes under that condition. If let's say, I put the phone down and I walk over to the other side of the kitchen, this phone allows me to continue listening to my music. This one has because the Bluetooth range on it is considerably worse. And this is the kind of stuff that I notice when when I use my devices. And the reason that I'm using a $140 phone is not just because I'm a cheapskate. It's also because in many ways the $140 phone also does cool shit like this. Look at this. See, I could turn on my flashlight by doing this. That's fucking awesome. Can't do that. The only time I'm ever going to do that with this is when I throw it at the fucking wall because it turns off again. But the thing that's awesome about this is the general feel of using the device is what I care about. Does it do annoying stuff? Does it crash on me? Is it reliable and all that? And what I find is that this Moto G that costs under $200 retail has been one of the few phones that just hits it for me out of the park, as opposed to many flagship models that often are just a little bit more finicky. So I wanted to try this just for the hell of it because I wanted to see what a more flagship, fancy schmancy phone felt like. And this is going back because it's just, I know they make new ones. I know. Why didn't you try the latest generation? Why didn't you try a newer one? Blah-de-blah-de-blah. I had the Samsung Galaxy S4G. When the S3 came out, people said, oh, you should try that. No, they fixed everything. I got it. Sucked. Then the S5 came out. I got it. Sucked. They said, "Oh no! With the S7 is so much." I got the S7. It would freeze. It would run slow. It would do stupid shit. It's like, you fooled me 4 times. No, I'm done. And based on when this phone came out, when it cost, it should be considerably better than this. But this represents a really great value, and I don't think that people should feel bad if they're unable to afford a high-end phone, a high-end cell phone to use as their smartphone, because you really do get more than you think you're getting when you buy the cheapest Motorola phone there is. And I remember when I went into the Verizon store to get this, I usually buy my phones used or refurbished for the most part. I had to buy this one new because I needed something immediately. I felt a little guilty about it. I usually prefer to buy them used or refurbished. I went to the store and I asked if they had a Moto, and they handed me the $999 one, and I asked about the Moto G, and they said, we don't have that one on display. And I said, I didn't ask if you had it on display. I asked if you had it in stock. Do you have it in stock? And then he's like, he sighs, and then he opens a drawer, he finds it, and he gives it to me. So when you go to the Verizon store, very often, you won't even see this phone. You won't know that this is available unless you do your research. But you should do your research, because when you go to the store, they're going to push you into the most expensive phone there is. And a lot of people can't really afford the most expensive thing there is right now. And what you get for what you pay for with one of these, it's absolutely amazing. And again, I love being able to do that and get my flashlight. It's so cool. Everybody else, oh, let me use my fingerprint. Let me scroll down. Let me scroll down again. Let me hit flashlight. Bitch, look what I can do. It's awesome. Show off on your first date. Show off at parties. It's amazing. Show off to your girlfriend's parents when you first meet them. Look what I can do. Eh? All right. Anyway. You probably understand at this point why I don't do reviews, because I kind of suck at them. Anyway, that's it for today. As always, hope you learned something. See you all in the next video. And after this, I imagine nobody's going to ask me to do another review of consumer products, because, yeah. There's a reason that the Marquez Brownlees and the Linuses of the world do these things.